We are live and ready, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for a regular meeting of the Soldovia City Council, Monday, May 10th, 6 p.m. We'll go ahead and do roll call. Nathan?
Here.
Sweat?
Here.
Colberg?
Here.
Morrison?
Here.
Rojas?
Here.
And Peyton?
Here.
Okay, it looks like we have everyone in attendance tonight. If everyone will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, excused absences, we have none. Agenda approval.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Okay, do we have
Second.
a second? Okay, is there any discussion or amendments on tonight's agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, I move to amend the agenda to include under new business, item M3, appropriating more funds to the Harbor Kiosks Capital Improvement Project.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, we have an amendment to, or a motion to amend the agenda tonight by adding item M3 to appropriate more funds for the Harbor Kiosk. We will go ahead and vote on the amendment. All those in favor, Nathan?
Aye.
Sweat?
Aye.
Colberg?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Rojas?
Aye.
Peyton?
Aye.
Okay, amendment passes. That'll take us back to the main motion. Any other discussion or any further amendments on the agenda? Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll go ahead and vote on the main motion to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor, Nathan?
Aye.
Sweat?
Aye.
Colbert?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Rojas?
Aye.
Peyton?
Aye.
A motion to approve the agenda as amended passes unanimously. Item E, consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are approved with a single motion, no discussion, and one vote. A council member may request to remove any item for discussion and a separate vote. On tonight's consent agenda, we have item 1 is the approval of minutes for the regular meeting, April 12th, 2021. Minutes of the regular meeting from April 26th, 2021. Item 2 is ordinance introduction. We have ordinance item 2A, ordinance 21-12A, a non-code ordinance to the city of Soldovia, Alaska, accepting FY 2022 fee schedule, appendix A of the FY 2022 budget. That's on page 7. And the second item under ordinance introduction is item 2B, ordinance 21-12B, a non-code ordinance of the city of Soldovia, Alaska, appropriating funds, appendix B, annual budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. So that's basically our main budget introduction after the series of meetings that we've had over the last month or so. So we're on item E, consent agenda. At this time, does any member wish to remove any of those items to discuss separately? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and I'll look for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sweat to approve tonight's consent agenda, second by Rojas. All those in favor, Nathan?
Aye.
Sweat?
Aye.
Colbert?
Aye.
Morrison,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Okay, tonight's consent agenda is unanimously approved. That'll take us to item F, mayoral proclamations. We have none tonight. Item G, public presentation, prior notice. Each presenter has up to 10 minutes. And tonight we have Jan Weiland signed up to speak on the Soldovia Public Library as the operations director.
Jan, if you'd like, you can either stand at the podium and use that mic, or you can use this one.
I've been sitting all day, so it's nice to stand up. Honorable Mayor, City Manager, and City Council, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you about the reopening plans of the Soldovia Public Library. My thanks to Ms. Friedlander for the standing invitation to report on library goings-on. As a rule, we do not really have big things to talk about, but as you know, the last year of COVID has been a big thing. Last summer was a real unusual one for us. We were restricted with having people in the library. Some of our volunteers were uncomfortable working in the restricted environment, so we were only open 6 hours a week. It was interesting that books were not checked out as much as DVDs were. People were staying home and getting into movies if they did not have regular TV. Now that some of the restrictions are lifted, we have added some shifts and are open 10 hours a week, which is what we have volunteers for. The library is open for browsing with restrictions being masking and social distancing. Our library goes along with guidelines of the state libraries and of course the city. We're planning 2 summer programs for kids in June and July. One is a story hour with Origami. It is called Storygami and tells a story while making an original object. We're fortunate that one of our volunteers is an expert in origami. So we're happy we can teach some kids how to do origami. We're fortunate that program be a summer reading program, which will encourage kids to read during the summer. The program gives stickers and prizes to keep the kids motivated, and the parents keep a chart of what the child has read. This is a program that goes on in almost all the libraries across the state. And a very exciting thing coming up for the library is that we've gotten a state grant enabling us to purchase 5 new computers and improve connectivity. Our present computers are 15 years old and were obtained through the Gates Foundation by some people who used to live here. And obviously 15 years ago, you know, they're pretty out of date. They've been a godsend for us, but they're woefully out of date. So these computers will be up and ready by June 30th. God willing, I can get some chairs here for people to sit in. Many of our patrons take advantage of Wi-Fi in the parking area outside of the building. And if I'm not mistaken, the city is credited with the option for that option for residents and visitors. I've been told that some people will pull up on this side of the building because that's where the connectivity is. And it's better on this side of the building than on the front side of the building. But we get a lot of people that use it, and a lot of, in the summertime when it's nice, a lot of kids that come around and sit on the benches. We're hoping to have some pop-up sales this summer to include older books, DVDs, and some obsolete computer equipment. We have lots of stuff in the storeroom, and that might be interest to some in the community. Thank you for allowing me to present, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jan. Anyone have any questions for Jan?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the update, Jan. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jan.
Okay, Heidi, it looks like Jan was the only one signed up for public presentation with prior notice. We'll go ahead and go on to item H, public presentations for items not on the agenda. Do we have any hands raised or anyone in the audience that wishes to comment?
We do, Mr.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, got you loud and clear, Laurel.
All right, thank you. Well, I wanted to just kind of give an update on where things are in plans as we look ahead at the summer season, and especially at the Independence Day celebration. Currently information on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce about the events that are taking place or planned to take place this summer. And so if you are a regular on the Seldovia Chatterbox, you'll see on there that it's been listed what all is happening, and just making sure if there's any, we always kind of try to gather everybody's information to see what might be planned that I might not know about. And then we get that information out to the folks who come to visit our community. But right now we have quite a wealth of activities that are planned throughout the summer, including live music every weekend, special concerts, special events that are taking place outdoors and indoors, and then things that are unique ways of planning, trying to create events and things that people can do that take us more outdoors than they might normally have in the past. So that is all listed there, and we can provide a copy if the city would like for the council members to have a copy of that. But just super excited to see all of those things taking place. And in particular, again, I just really want to recognize the Seldovia Arts Council for how they're stepping up to see how they can offer services in our community inside of just the different model that we're operating and existing in, especially because they were pretty heavy for use of the school. So now they're really looking at how they can get people outdoors and how best to do that. So looking independent, there are plans in the work that in the work this year that include everything from a parade, salmon shuffle, 5K, the rubber ducky race, teen games, adult game, kids games, a half K of us who can't get as far as the 5K, walkers, the book sale from the library, and of course other live music and different beer gardens. And so those are already planned, and then we're looking for more folks who would be interested in joining in and doing more activities as well. So pretty exciting to see that folks are on board to have great things happen in the community. So those are just some of the things that I've got awareness of. And in particular, just to remind you, Seldovia Bay Ferry has runs on Friday and Saturday this week. And then our regular season starts a week from Thursday on May 20th. That's coming fast. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're muted, Jeremiah.
Oops, sorry about that. Okay, thank you, Laurel. Sorry about that. Anyone else? Heidi, have anyone else with their hands up, or anyone else wishing to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have a Mr. Nathan.
Okay.
Just right quick, kind of about the public health nurses are going to be here tomorrow. It's kind of sad we didn't really have a lot of time to get the word out, but I have a shot scheduled at 1 o'clock right here in this room, and I would bet that anybody that wandered in here when they were here probably could get a shot. That's not an official announcement, but I think it's probably so. So if you run across anybody between now and tomorrow afternoon that is interested in getting a shot, we'll tell them to get here.
They're 16 and up.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, George.
Just one quick question for Laurel. Is there anything that the chamber wanted to have that isn't in the works? Is there anything being held up?
Well, in order to have the traditional model of the Independence Day celebrations, that included things like the grandstand being on the harbor parking lot, right? And people gathering here and there for different things. Like certainly if you ever had canoe jousting, people would be sitting along the waterfront. So the things that bring congestion, so we're working hard to do what we can. It's as a hybrid, because last year we saw, certainly that there were businesses in the tribe that, came in and did activities using their private properties. But absent the city, you're pretty much required to be on property that's not city property. So.
Okay. But you're basically happy with what we're going to have? Everybody?
I'm happy with the fact that people are doing their darndest to make sure we have something to offer for the people who are here in the community and come to visit the community, for sure. Yeah. Oh, and I did want to say, with the city's permission, on that list of activities for the summer, I, for the last 2 summers, have had a small gathering at the cemetery on Memorial Day itself at 3:00, just where we play taps and we just acknowledge the veterans who have died in past wars or serving the military. So if that's okay with the city.
Yeah, I mean, I have no objection to that gathering. I attended that myself last year, or I guess it was the year before. We didn't do anything, I don't think, for COVID. Okay, thank you, Laurel, and thank you, George, for those comments. Anyone else, Heidi?
Mr. Mayor, if I can ask a question, please, of George.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, George, the vaccination that's happening tomorrow, is that part of what Dr. Zink was talking about, the pop-up for different communities? Is this part of what she was bringing forward?
I think so. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, hopefully that everyone knows about it, that still needs a shot. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I believe we did put something out on Facebook. Is that right, Heidi? And I think the word got around. I know a lot of people out the road are in line. The nurses are gonna work their way from Jackaloff into town.
Oh, excellent.
So hopefully we'll get a good response.
Good, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the public?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Pearlie.
I guess you could call us Balto, because Halo Cab's going to be running them around with the vaccines.
Perfect. Okay, if no further comments, we will move on to committee and advisory board reports. I don't see anybody on the agenda. Heidi, was there any last minute additions?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, item J, administrative reports. Looks like we have none here. Item K, public hearings. Item K1, ordinance 21-11, and there is a substitute, a non-code ordinance of the City Council of the City of Soldovia, amending the fiscal year 2021 budget for the general, water, sewer, dock, boat haul out, harbor, senior meals, Lollipop Park, Soldovia Cemetery, CARES Act, and major maintenance and repair funds. We'll go ahead and have a presentation by staff, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So the substitute ordinance before you, ordinance 21-11S, the reason why there was a substitute and there's a backup memo explaining it is because while you were provided the amended budget documents, the ordinance itself didn't include the unfunded COVID category. So the City of Soldovia has over $92,000 worth of expenses that would qualify for COVID reimbursement, but we did not have enough funds left from the grants that we've received. And so that $92,000 and it's growing as a way for us to keep track of expenses that could qualify for future grants to replace those expenses or take care of those expenses. And so that's why there is a substitute ordinance. As the ordinance document says too, the mid-year or the city manager is charged with executing a budget on behalf of council, and you pass the budget every year. And the budget is a guiding document for staff. It gives us permission on behalf of council in order to accomplish the city's mission. And recently you passed Ordinance 21-07S, which was a mid-year adjustment. And that was to give us additional authority for line items within the budget where we noticed we were exceeding your authority. And then reviewing the finance reports, we've noticed that there are a lot of accounts that were overspending. And so this amended budget is coming before council after the fact to ask for permission to cover those expenses. And so if you go to page 144 in your packet, that'll take you to the finance report that shows you what the budget would look like without the amended version. So it's page 144 to 159. And you'll notice in the far right column of the finance report, there's numerous line items that have percentages that are very high and exceeding that initial authority. And I would love in the future, probably during a work session, to have a discussion with council and our finance officer about how we present the financial information of the city, so that way it's easily digestible to council. So page 144 to 159 is the FY21 budget without the amended version. And then if you go to page 160, that shows you the finance report with the amended budget in. And so you can see that it corrects a lot of the exceedances over the line items throughout various departments. And so again, the budget is administration's best attempt in working with council to predict what the expenses of the city would be. And we have gone over budget. And it's something that I'm hoping that through the development of the 20 budget, it's just a continuous trend that I've been noting across passages exceed the budget that council originally approved. And that can be for a variety of reasons. Unexpected lawsuits, legal fees, critical infrastructure failing. So there's a lot we can't predict, but if you go to page 128 of your packet, this chart will look familiar. It was shown during one of your budget work sessions. It shows you the FY21 original amount that was proposed to council back in May of 2020. We had asked council for permission to spend in the general fund $485,851, and for this year with the amended budget, it needs to be amended to $661,201, and that is not out of the realm of possibility, given the orange bar you see on that chart is what we've typically spent in the general fund. And so for the FY21 amended budget, it's not just amending our predictions and actuals for the general fund, but across all funds, the water fund, the sewer fund, the harbor. And a couple more things to note about the FY21 amended budget. You'll notice that the major maintenance and repair funds document, which is on page, let's see, page 142 of your packet. You'll notice that this fund has been zeroed out. And that's because I wanted to make it very clear to council that what may look like you guys had $233,000 worth of additional funding to help with major repairs and maintenance didn't actually exist. It is not a separate fund where there's a pool of money, and that total that you were shown, what it is staff earmarking available fund balance across the major funds. So we have as our major funds, general fund, water, sewer, dock, boat haul out, and harbor. And all of those funds have an available fund balance if your revenues exceed your expenses. And so what the major maintenance repair fund in the past was doing was getting permission from council to spend down that available fund balance, but it wasn't actually a fund or a reserve sitting aside with $233,000 in it. And so I zeroed all of those out to make it very clear to council that we don't have a reserve set aside for maintenance in that category. And so one of the recommendations we'll be working on during the FY22 budget process is establishing a reserve fund where actual cash gets transferred to an account, and that account can be protected so that it is only available to be used for major maintenance and repair. So that's one of the big differences in the FY21 amended budget. Also, this budget draws $9,000 from fund balance in the general fund. That's another thing to point out, and I addressed it in the backup memo to the substitute ordinance, is that, again, we have a history as an organization of overspending what was originally appropriated by council. And so as a result of that, trying to correct and get additional permission to spend, there's about $9,000 in the general fund balance that we're going to be taking down because we don't have enough revenues to make up for the expenses by June 30, 2021 of this year. So those are the major points that I wanted to bring up about the substitute ordinance for the FY21 amended budget. I'm happy to answer any questions and hear feedback from the council.
Thank you, Rachel. All right, we'll go ahead and open it up for council discussion, questions, comments from anyone.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, George.
could I offer an alternative to setting aside money that we can't touch for other things? Suppose we required that any ordinance that it had spending attached to it must also identify where the funds are going to come from to cover that spending. I think we're in precarious enough position right now that it might hurt us to not be able to use something that was there that could have been used. I don't think we want to go crazy, but on the other hand, there may come a time when we've got to do something that we really don't want to do. Perhaps we could have the same effect by causing a spending, an ordinance that involves spending to have to identify the source of funds for it. It's something to think about.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Nathan, that is actually a common practice that most municipalities do, is they have to line out which accounts or funding sources, expenses are being credited to. And we can definitely discuss once we get to that point of setting up a reserve fund. It was a recommendation from our auditors to do that. And typically it wouldn't be restrictive and possibly the way that you're thinking. So let's just say, for example, the new sewer pumps that we get fail. Again, if we had a reserve for major maintenance and repairs, that would qualify. So that would be money that you could pool and access right away. So basically what it does is lock the money up, so it's not commingled in our other funds. An arena that I need to get more information on is when the state of Alaska deeded Jackaloff Dock to the city, they also gave us something to the tune of $380,000 along with that dock. And because that money wasn't set aside in a separate account, it's been spent. And it's hard to know what it was spent for. So by creating a separate account where the cash cannot commingle with where the city's operating expenses are going into, you protect it in a safe way. It's not protected because council can do whatever council would like, but it makes it so that it can't be used for daily operations.
I don't have any problem at all with setting up the account or having the fund there. You used an example, say the sewer pump fails again and we've got money set aside to fix the sewer pump. Well, let's say the water system fails and the money is set aside for the sewer system. It would be kind of silly to not be able to use that money if we absolutely had to. That's all I'm saying.
It'll be good discussion for the future.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Rachel. Any other questions, comments from council?
I agree with Rachel. I think we need to have funds start going into an account just for major maintenance and repair. Said, sewer or water, everything that breaks. So instead of, I guess we've been using a little bit of everything for that instead of having it as its own. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I would concur with what Rachel's saying, and I think it touches on George's concerns. At least we will have accountability and record of what we're doing and what we're going to be doing in the future and what we need to do. So I'm really impressed with what's been brought forward, and I think we need to move in this direction, in a trajectory in this direction for quite a while to get our baseline right. But I'm totally in agreement with what we need to be doing, get our major maintenance funding under control and figure out where we're spending and what we're spending. So I applaud what's in front of you right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Any other questions, comments from council? Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Someone have their hand up or want to speak?
no, I don't see any more council members wanting to speak at this time.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I heard someone. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll go ahead and go down to public presentation. If there's anyone from the public that wishes to comment or have questions for the city manager on the budget presentation.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have Mr. Dean Lent.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry to turn my back on you. This is about the city being in charge of the cemetery money, the grant money. You've decided to spread that over 2 years. The cemetery money we got.
Through the mayor, Mr. Lent, the FY21 appropriation that you see, that was a guess based on the cemetery committee receiving the funds. I wasn't sure how you were going to use it. And so if there was interest in the committee in using the full amount of Rasmussen funds by June 30, you could, council could make a motion to amend the FY21 cemetery budget for the full amount of the Rasmussen grant, but you would only have till June 30th to do so. And I was under the impression that perhaps Mr. Hopkins, who's helping the cemetery committee, might be more available in August.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. Mr. Hopkins did what?
He may be more available in August to assist with the maintenance of the cemetery. And so that's why there's budget in both fiscal years. So council, Mr. Lent is talking about page, let's find it in the budget.
Yeah, it should be on page 140. And then also on 80. Yeah, 140 is the amended for 2021. Let's see here, make sure.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yep.
to clear some of that confusion, I think what the city manager is trying to allude to, Mr. Lent, is that our fiscal year ends in the middle of the summer. So while the work is all being done in the summer, it's going to start in FY21, but it'll finish potentially in FY22 because our fiscal year ends June 30th.
Okay,
So it's all done in the summer potentially, but the fiscal year is right in the middle of the summer.
okay. Okay, my point being on that, I'm not sure if you're aware of what we have done or what needs to be done. Number one, I and my lawnmower are no longer available, and we need a lawnmower now. It's like the commercial on TV. I want my money. I want it now.
Well, Mr. Lent, if council passes the budget, the FY21 amended budget as is, you will have $5,000 up until June 30 that you can use to purchase a riding lawnmower.
That's not enough.
Okay.
We need a lawnmower, we need a shed, and we need a trailer. Okay, we need the lawnmower for the cemetery and RV park. And we need a trailer to take it to RV park. And we need a shed to put the trailer and the lawnmower and equipment in. And if we have to wait till June to order it, who knows when we'll get it. But I don't see why you have to spread it over 2 years. We want it now. And also, do you have in the budget donated funds?
Yes, if you go to that page 140, you'll see donations, and it'll show for FY21 how much in terms of revenue the Soldovia Cemetery Special Revenue Fund has. It's $1,405. And Mr. Lent, if it's any consolation, council will pass this budget tonight through this ordinance, and they can always amend it. So if you guys need more funding because we have the grant, you'll still have access to funds. And as the person helping spearhead this initiative for the city, council will review, because the city of Soldovia is the recipient of the funds, and so council has to give permission for the use of them to the committee. But council can amend this budget through a separate piece of legislation. So right now, if council passes this tonight, you would have $5,000 for operating supplies and $500 for equipment fuel. FY22, you'd have access to over $6,000 because the Rasmussen grant the city received was over $10,000.
Okay.
So we can always amend things. So don't fear. You'll still have access to the funds.
Okay, we need more than that. And number one, the money that's been donated, there's $1,000 in there that I had donated for the purpose, not for the cemetery, but there was no other fund to put it in. We can't put it in the general fund. And it's to level the land between the road and the cemetery fence, which I met with you and we decided where that was. There's $1,000 that should not be in there, in that fund. Do you understand? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And again, if we wait till June to order material, how long does it take to get here? In summer, it's going to pass. And we need the money now.
Mr. Lent, if council passes this tonight, you would have access through the city to $5,000 starting tomorrow.
That's not enough. Well, how much is a riding lawnmower? You have the prices on that?
In the grant document that was used to Rasmussen, we reported to Rasmussen the riding lawnmower would be something like $2,300.
Okay, we need a cement floor for the shed. We need a shed. We need a trailer. The 5,000 is not going to get that. Okay, and we'd like to get started now. Well,
If I can just offer a couple comments here. In light of what's been happening this year with the price of building materials and stuff, unfortunately, as you well know, Dean, to do the shed is probably not going to be a good year for it. I mean, I think we're going to have to look. I know we need the riding lawnmower, a trailer. There's a number of things that were identified in here that we need in the next couple months, which I think we could still accomplish with with the $5,000 for June, and then starting July 1, we could certainly, spend the rest of it if it needed to. By the time we order it, and things do get here, we're going to have the additional funding available. I mean, I'd be willing to donate some space to house the riding lawnmower, because I know that's one of the reasons for the shed. We don't want to leave that outside. And then hopefully the city might be able to, have some space for any of the smaller equipment and stuff. I think we're going to get everything accomplished that you want to get accomplished here. And like Rachel said too, if we expend everything here in the next 30 days, then if we want to keep spending, we can amend this right up until the last day of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. So if we needed more money, we could certainly do that.
Yeah, again, the shed, I would recommend a metal shed. Wooden shed is going to have maintenance, rot. So I don't think that's the way we should go with the shed.
Yep, understood. Well, we'll have to look at some prices, because even metal has doubled since last year. Everything is just exponentially horrible on pricing right now. So we'll obviously have to prioritize what we can get out of this, $11,000 or whatever we have total here. Bottom line is we'll be in a lot better position with some new equipment and stuff than we've had.
Maybe I don't understand, but this is the first time I think I've ever seen the city involved in cemetery money. In fact, it's the first time I've ever seen the cemetery involved for years in the cemetery, in the city land. I don't know why it happened that all of a sudden the city jumps in to budget the money there. Other than that, this afternoon, I think we should all thank Harmony. She was out in the area that Jim Hopkins removed the stumps and put the dirt. She raked down at least half of it. It looks wonderful. It's ready for seed. And we plan on going tomorrow to finish that up. So thank you, Harmony. Okay, that's all for me.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment?
Yeah, you bet.
So I did have a brief conversation with Layla and Dean about these funds here. And if we're able to amend our budget, can we make the total amount available for the purchases that they have set aside to make the purchases they need to make? I mean, it seems more reasonable to make your big bulk purchases at once, because you're gonna have to pay shipping. And if they know what they need, can we make that available to them and amend at the end of June for whatever's left over for the next fiscal year? Is that something we can do?
Yeah.
Does that work for you, Dean?
Yeah. Also, like I said, I've never seen the city involved in budgeting any money for the cemetery. And it would be my recommendation, or I'm asking the council to direct the city manager to remove the cemetery money from the budget. It should not be a part of the budget at all. Layla Peterson is in charge of ordering materials and has been very, very helpful with taking care of the stuff she does. And she can handle the money. I don't see why it has to be part of the budget. And also Ted and Ginny Moore, I don't know if everybody knows them. They live next to Mike Miller. They're donating 6-inch by 12-inch signs for all the unmarked graves at a cost of over $5,000. And we should be thankful for them for doing that. So thank you.
Through the mayor.
Thank you, Dean. Yep, go ahead, Harmony.
I just want to say thank you, Dean, and Radzi and Layla, and just there's so many people who have done so much work out at the cemetery. It's been such a remarkable change over the last 3 years that you guys have started on this. Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done out there.
7 years ago.
Yeah.
It's come a long way.
It's come a long way.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
if I might make a comment. I think a cheaper route out of this whole deal would be, not to get out of it, but just a suggestion. Pick up a riding lawnmower, which I think a push mower with power to the wheels would be a lot more effective. I think a riding lawnmower, as rough as that cemetery is, could be doing a lot of pushing on it, but maybe not. And it seems like we got a building down there called the Value Added Building that could be a storage shed, a little
Absolutely.
corner of that, if there's nothing already stored in it. And flatbed that the city has could haul it back and forth with a set of ramps. We're trying to figure out ways to slow down on our spending, and I think we have solutions other than cement pad, a new building, and a way to get it back
Yeah.
and forth. Thank you.
Mr. Morrison, I just want to clarify really quick that the funds that we're discussing right now are funds that were granted to us through the Rasmussen, it's a Rasmussen grant. And when you submit for a grant like that, you itemize what you want with a price point, and then they grant you funds to get what you need based off of those numbers. So the things that they're looking at purchasing, they have to use these funds to purchase what they requested. So it's not a matter of like nickel and diming by purchasing something, a push along, and renting from the city. We're already at the end of this. Now we're just ready to move forward with how we're going to spend these funds.
Yeah, Harmony, is there a deadline on that grant?
Yep. Yes,
Okay.
there is.
That's I didn't understand that.
Yeah, the deadline's March of 22 for all of the funds to be expended for the grant.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I would suggest put your whole order list together, complete, and you get the money for it and send it. You have to make an order anyway. And if you have to have a special meeting to get the money shifted, then do it that way. It's money for the cemetery only, and I don't see why it should be locked up myself, but if it needs to be, make the order. And if it comes out to $10,900, then you get $10,900 and make the order. It doesn't do any good to have $10,900 in your hand if you don't have the order even made out. So that's my point. Thank you.
Can I just comment one more time, really quick? I'm pretty sure that Layla and Radzi and Dean already have this figured out as far as the materials that they need, where they're going to purchase. I mean, I can't speak for them. I'm not them. But from what I understand, they're ready to move forward with this. They worked really hard on the cemetery to get it to the point that it's at. They worked hard to receive this grant. They know what they need. I understand why this Rachel and the staff did what they did for this budgeting. It makes sense. But if we can make the funds available to them so that they can make the purchases that they need, I think it makes sense to allow them to make that bulk purchase and then amend later. I mean, this is, I had a couple conversations, and I think that we should put the ball in their court. They've taken it so far. Why can't we just let them take toe across the line?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep. We'll go ahead, George, and then we'll let Dean ask a follow-up question there. Yep, go ahead, George.
Just a quick question. Who was the grant made to?
The city of Soldovia.
The city of Soldovia. Well, if we got the grant, I think we have to administer it. Certainly we should give them as much money as we can as soon as we can, but it's going to have to go through the city budgeting process because of who got the grant.
in response to Pearlie's comment, I have a friend, Dale Rosenbaum.
Mr. Mayor, I can't hear him.
Yeah, hold on. Razzy's bringing the mic over.
Yeah, I have a friend, Dale Rosenbaum, who has helped me for at least 6 years out there. And he comes in and some evenings, he wants to go out to the cemetery and work. If he has access to the equipment we have, then he can work. If you don't have access, like if we store it in the city building down there, you won't have access. If we had a small building out there with a combination lock or something where volunteers could get to the equipment, that would be very helpful. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Dean.
Mayor Campbell, I have a comment.
Yep, go ahead.
So I'm glad that Mr. Lent brought up how he had not seen the Soldovia Cemetery included in the budgets before. Technically, the city of Soldovia should be doing that for all of our special revenue funds. And so you'll see them documented and called out in our audit report. And the audit report will state things like, this was not given a permission or approval by Soldovia City Council, but this was a special revenue fund. And so it's best practice for the city to be as transparent as possible to the public about how we've been spending funds to budget for special projects like senior meals, the cemetery. I'm trying to think about what other special revenue funds we have that are more unique. The source is a little different, but so that's the first point. The second point is when the city gets audited, any asset or material that's received or ordered has to be received within the fiscal year that it's purchased. Otherwise, it gets booked to the next fiscal year. So let's say, for example, the Soldovia Cemetery Committee ordered a riding lawnmower, and because everyone's home because of COVID, everyone's mowing their lawns frantically, and there's no lawnmowers, so we buy it. In FY21, June 30 passes, and then it comes July 1. Technically, that purchase has to be credited to our FY22 budget. So it's best to be conservative but council can just make amendments to this budget. But when it comes to purchases and assets, they have to be received within the fiscal year they're bought. So because we have basically a month and a half left of the fiscal year, if the Soldovia Cemetery Committee feels like they can spend over $10,000 by that point, that's reasonable. Council can totally amend this budget. But if you think within this period of time, you're not going to hit that threshold, we can wait till you have your list of items you want to buy and then amend the budget so that you have permission from council, or you can wait till July 1 and get everything with the rest of the funds, because the city just wants to be transparent with how the funds are being used, especially because we got them from an outside agency. So you just want to have council approval and permission, and that way it gives the public the most information and also gives you council's permission of how the funds are being used. So it's good for your organization, your committee, to have council's permission.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Rachel.
I'm sorry. Has the city ever had the cemetery in the budget before? I've never. Heidi?
Mr. Mayor, if I could answer that.
Yep, go ahead, Heidi.
So, Mr. Lind, I'm not aware of the city having it in their budget before, but it is in our code of ordinances in Title 11. That's the reason why the city is able to accept donations for the cemetery fund. It's because it's a part of our ordinances that we've established a cemetery advisory commission, and we can accept donations on behalf of that commission. That's why the funds are run through the city.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Heidi, for explaining that.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Comment, Vivian?
Yeah, please. Thank you, Rachel, for clarifying a few things. But yes, as a council, we did set up an ordinance for recognizing and working with the cemetery committee, that so they could be part of the city and we could run funds through. But I think if this is going to come before council, and if the cemetery committee wants to get all their supplies or something before and can get everything done before July 30th, then I think they need to come to council, do their homework, find out where they can get stuff, what building supplies, and have it all laid out so we can actually make an educated decision on this. Otherwise, I think you would probably be behoove the committee to do it in this fiscal year and then the next. But otherwise, if you're going to be asking the city to amend the budget and put everything in this year before June 30th, I think we need to have in front of us the information of what you can get, when you can get it, and it can be here before I would be voting for it. But Dean, thank you for everything you're doing, and congratulations on the 10,000 Rasmussen grant. And I think you'll be able to do a lot with it. It's just a matter of determining what can be done and when. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
Mr.
Someone
Mayor.
else had a comment. Was that you, Pearlie?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
go ahead.
After listening to everything that's being said, you guys have your ducks in a row. You've got your list of what you need. So like John was saying, go ahead and pull the trigger on it. Find out when you can get it. And ask for the money.
If I'm,
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem of getting the money.
if
And
I
I
might
agree
speak,
with you as far as,
if I might speak.
Oh, go ahead, Razzie. Yeah, we're freezing up on the internet here, so that's why I couldn't hear you. Go ahead if you have a comment.
I don't have the actual figures here in front of me, but I did go through after I've heard the amount, the 11,300 or whatever it is. I did go through the list of items, and I figured that we could order probably within a week from now about 80% of the funds we have available on 2 orders.
Do you know where they'd be coming from, when they could be getting here?
I don't yet know when they would arrive, or in fact, I asked Layla to put together quotes, and I think she hasn't yet received them from the places. I believe the 2 places would be the Honda shop and Home Depot.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so if I'm hearing this correctly, I mean, I think the cemetery committee can move, even if we approve this as is tonight, the cemetery committee can move forward, get the quotes, place the order, take that in. They don't have to take it into the city manager and say, okay, we can get everything delivered by June 30th. This is what we're going to spend. And then the manager can bring it back at our next meeting to, if it's over the 5,600 or whatever it is, to get permission to move any remaining funds or whatever funds are needed. Or plan B, the second option, is when we get into the substitute, someone can move to amend the substitute to change the amount in the special revenue for the special revenue fund for the cemetery, to move all those funds into FY21 instead of 22.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
there's another hand raised in the public, Miss Laurel Hiltz.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right. So one, I would encourage, because the camera doesn't view the entire chamber, I would encourage that discussion only go through the recognition of the city clerk to you. Otherwise, I think you're going to find a really long meeting. And 2, I served on the Lollipop Park Committee. That committee functioned on behalf or as an arm of the city in order to identify needs for the park and identify equipment and any regulations that were associated with that. The committee met, the committee gathered the information, presented the information to the council, and then the council gave instruction to the city manager, the acting city manager or city manager at the time, to make the purchase and then install the equipment. And so I think, one, that committee would never have existed if Lollipop Park had not existed, and the city owns and maintains Lollipop Park, and with that holds the financial and liability responsibility of Lollipop Park as it does with the property that is the cemetery, the Seldovia Cemetery. And so the committee in regards to the cemetery, incredible committee, came out of a volunteer spirit, but the liability is held by the city. And so I think it's the responsibility of the city to ensure that all of the efforts are done in the appropriate way, and certainly with a recognition of the goodwill and the many volunteer hours that take place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. Okay, Heidi, anyone
Mr. Mayor?
else? Yep, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening and I don't quite understand, which is nothing new, but I'm wondering exactly what Laurel said. How come everything went so smoothly with the Lollipop Park money as opposed to this money? Was it because we're closer to the fiscal year end or what?
No, because we just got the grant, and it's part of the process, right? That took 6 or 8 months. This is going to go, or maybe a year. You have to correct me. I don't remember the whole process. I just remember it was long, but there was a lot of back and forth, many meetings. This one looks like it can go as smooth or smoother and certainly faster than that took. Yeah, I don't see any complications here at all. It's just a formality is all this is.
Well,
So, I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill here.
Yeah, what I mean is Lollipop Park, had access to, they gave a list of what they wanted. It came to X amount of dollars, boom, it was done. And so the cemetery thing, they've been working on that grant for a while also. So I guess I'm just wondering what the difference is. If they have their list of what they want to order and it stays within those parameters, then can't they just order what they need and be done?
That's what we just said. That's the next step. Bring the order and all the details to the city manager. And if we need to move some money, if it's over the $6,000 or whatever, it'll come back at the next meeting saying, yep, that everything's done. The order's placed, or we want to place the order. We need the extra funds, and it's done.
I guess I'm,
Exact same process.
yeah, but why can't they just have access to the whole $10,000?
Okay, in the spirit of not going till 11 o'clock tonight, if we can move on here, when we get to the substitute, if someone wants to make an amendment to the substitute, feel free, we can do that, and this discussion will be done. All the money you can recommend to move whatever amount of funding you want from FY22 proposed over to FY21.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
That's all I'm saying, is that's part of the process here. It's been outlined. It's entirely up to council what you guys want to do. The city manager put the budget together. It's proposed, keyword proposed. Council can do anything they desire. Okay, any other questions, comments from the public? Nothing further, Heidi?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so in the interest of getting through this here, that'll bring it back to council for final disposition. And at this time, I would look for a motion to adopt the original ordinance 21-11.
Make a motion, we adopt ordinance 21-11.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt ordinance 21-11. That was the original ordinance that had the $1,354,946 in it. We do have a second. At this time, I'll ask if there are any motions to substitute.
Mr. Mayor, are you looking for a adoption of ordinance 21-11S?
Yes, correct.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 21-11S.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, at this time, we have a motion to adopt 21-11S, which is the substitute. Is there any discussion on this? And during that discussion, now would be the time if anyone wants to offer an amendment to the substitute. Okay, any discussion? I don't hear any discussion on the substitute. The substitute adds the additional amount of about $84,156 to bring our final amount proposed for FY 2021 to $1,439,102. So any final comments, questions, discussion, or amendments to FY 21 proposed? Okay, if no further discussion, we will vote on the substitute ordinance 21-11S. All those in favor, Nathan?
Aye.
Sweat?
Aye.
Colberg?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Rojas?
Aye.
Peyton?
Aye.
Okay, so the substitute has passed, which will take us now back to the main motion. And with that, the main motion will now be the substitute of 21-11S with the new amount of $1,439,102. Any further discussion on the substitute?
Mayor, may
Okay.
I?
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure too that council saw the supplemental that was provided for the FY21 amended budget. It just goes over in detail the general fund and how we got to the totals for each of the departments that comprise the general fund. So I wanted to make sure that folks saw that in their supplemental, and that's all I have.
Okay, and that came out late this afternoon. That was a couple of additional pages that did not make it with the part of the original packet. I've got my notes here. There was.
Yes, that's correct, Mayor. They were provided when the ordinance was introduced, but we've been having some Adobe issues and just a lot going on. So I apologize that they didn't make it in the second round, but they're put into the supplemental packet.
Okay. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll now vote on the motion to adopt ordinance 21-11 as substituted. All those in favor, Nathan?
Aye.
Sweat?
Aye.
Colberg?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Rojas?
Aye.
Peyton?
Aye.
Okay, so ordinance 21-11 S as the substitute is adopted unanimously. That will take us to item K2, resolution 21-31, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Soldovia appropriating FY 2022 community assistance funds. And this will be found on page 179 of your regular packet. And if the staff will go ahead and present.
Thank you, Mayor. So at the latest budget work session we had with council, we discussed the allocation of the community assistance funds. So the City of Soldovia every year, along with other cities across the state, receives the community assistance program funds. And every year they are a risky funding source for cities because the legislature consistently discusses and the governor consistently discusses removing or reducing those funds. Council has made the decision, or during the work session, there was discussion concerning the $75,000 or so we're supposed to receive for FY22. And after those discussions at the work session, the allocation was, there was consensus for the allocation of $10,000 towards Jackaloff dock repairs, $35,000 towards the use of insurance divided amongst the city's 6 major funds, which are the general water, sewer, harbor, boat haul out, and municipal dock funds. And then $30,957.47 to be used for wages and salaries in the Soldovia Police Department in order to offset general fund expenses, because without the allocation of the community assistance funds this way, we are going to be withdrawing over $50,000 from the Soldovia Permanent Fund. And so by using the community assistance funds within the general fund, we reduce how much we're withdrawing from the Soldovia Permanent Fund. And so included in your packet tonight, in addition to the resolution, there's also the FY22 application that we have to fill out. It's due to the state by June 1st in order to receive the funds. So we'll complete this after council discussion and approval through the resolution. And then also included is how the funds were allocated in FY21. And I think council would find this interesting if you go to page 189 in your packet. You'll see that the last fiscal year, and I'm not sure about council's involvement in the allocation of the funds, but administration made the decision to put 50,000 of those funds towards insurance, 12,517 towards fuel, and 12,517 towards public safety to help cover the police department wages and salaries. So we look pretty similar compared to how we decided to split the costs for FY22. The main difference are, of course, the amounts, as well as putting funding towards Jackaloff Dock this year.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate that. Okay, any comments, questions from council? Okay, no questions, comments. We'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Heidi, do we have anyone from the public that wishes to comment?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for final action on resolution 21-31.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we adopt resolution 21-31.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt resolution 21-31 by Rojas, second by Colberg. All those in favor, Nathan?
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Colberg,
Aye.
Morrison,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Okay, resolution 21-31 passes unanimously. Thank you for that. Item K3, resolution 21-32, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Soldovia authorizing the acceptance of grant funds from the Rasmussen Foundation for the Soldovia Cemetery. And this will be found on page 192 of your packet. If staff could go ahead and present, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So resolution 21-32, it would be, if adopted, the city's formal acceptance of the Rasmussen Foundation funds to help the Soldovia Cemetery. We had a constituent say that the city assumes liability for work and maintenance and repair of city facilities and properties, including the cemetery. And because the grant is in the city's name, it's in our best interest to have a formal acceptance of the grant, including all of the conditions to spend the funds, because if funds are used inappropriately, then the city is responsible for paying them back. You can see that the city in the original application requested a grant amount of $21,880. We received $10,930 of that. And there's a price allocation to show how, and application to show how the city applied for the Rasmussen funds. And so this is just a resolution that will formally accept them and bind the city to the grant terms and be able to deposit the check. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Okay, hearing no questions or comments from council, we'll go ahead and move on to public presentation. If anyone from the public has any questions or comments, Heidi, you can let me know if there's anyone with hands up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a Miss Laurel Hiltz.
Okay,
If you can hear me, Mr. Mayor?
yep, loud and clear.
Yeah, so looking at the letter from Rasmussen, it does say that they're interested in knowing about any significant accomplishments or special events. And so certainly sharing pictures and images of the things that happen would be great. And if I'm out there and we do have a gathering on Memorial Day, I'll make sure that I capture some photos. And I do have some pictures from the past, but this seems that it wants to reflect the current funding. So I'll make sure I capture a few extra images and share them with the city manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel. Appreciate that. Any other questions, comments from members of the public? Nobody else, Heidi?
Nobody else at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for final action on resolution 21-32.
I'll
Mr.
make a
Mayor,
motion.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Yep, go ahead,
I'll
John.
make a motion. We adopt resolution 21-32.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion to adopt resolution 21-32 by Colberg, second by Rojas. All those in favor, Nathan,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Colberg,
Aye.
Morrison,
Aye.
Rojas,
aye.
Peyton.
Aye.
Okay, resolution 21-32 for the city council accepting the grant funds from the Rasmussen Foundation is approved unanimously, 6-0. That will take us over to item L, unfinished business, none. Item M, new business, American Rescue Plan, City of Soldovia. And we'll go ahead and have staff go ahead and comment on that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to just pull up Zoom so I can share my screen. I have a PowerPoint to share. Hopefully everyone can see that okay.
Yep, looks
So
good.
the American, okay, thank you, Mayor. The American Rescue Plan, it is a $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package that recently passed. The state of Alaska is poised to receive a total of $1.02 billion in the American Rescue Plan funds to assist in the recovery efforts from COVID. And so that over $1 billion authorizes funding in certain programs, and it doesn't have to be by the end of this year. It can go till the end of 2024. The next slide shows you the governor's proposal for how a majority of those funds are to be used. The governor allocated $80 million towards protecting Alaskans. He proposed, I should say, $150 million towards the Alaska tourism revitalization effort, $325 million to economic recovery and innovation, $325 million to build Alaska infrastructure investment, and then to offset the general fund, $139.26 million. And so more information can be found on the governor's website under press releases that have been issued in the past. But I just wanted to give council a snapshot of how the governor's intending to use that $1 billion for Alaska overall. And out of the amount that $1 billion that was submitted to the state, 230 million of that, or almost 231, would be issued as payments to Alaskan communities. And so, and the payment to communities is based on a federal formula. So the city of Soldovia, according to the Alaska Municipal League, we're positioned to receive $57,031.70 in 2 installments from the state of Alaska's distribution of the American Rescue Plan funds. We're going to receive it in 2 tranches or 2 installments. So we're supposed to get the first half, $28,500, the beginning of May. We haven't seen it so far. We still have to do some administrative tasks, I believe, to apply for it. And then we're going to see the other half of that 12 months later. So we're not going to receive the $57,000 that we're estimated to receive all at once. The American Rescue Plan funds, there's 4 areas of primary use that are permitted. You can use it to address coronavirus health impacts or economic impacts. You can provide premium pay for essential workers. You can use it to help cover lost revenue in providing services. And you can use it to make investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. So those are the 4 areas of primary use. It's not all encompassing, and there's other uses the city could consider. The Alaska Municipal League, which the city of Soldovia is a part of, provided a presentation in which they gave suggestions for how local governments could use this funding. And they were very correct to say that for most cities receiving this funding, the amount that you would be receiving is minimal. It doesn't cover the full extent or impact that the coronavirus pandemic has had on your city. And that is certainly the case for Soldovia. And so some recommendations that they've made for local governments to consider are replacing lost revenue from this last year and coming year, so you can stabilize your revenue source for your city. You can clean up any outstanding debt, so PERS liability, utilities, insurance, any audit fees. You can provide targeted aid to businesses or residents. You can develop shovel-ready infrastructure projects. You could partner with schools and tribes on water, sewer, and broadband improvements. So there's an array of ways that the city could allocate the $28,500 we're supposed to receive this year. And it's important to note that for council and the FY21 amended budget, we had over $92,000 of COVID expenses that we didn't have grant funds to cover. So just keep that in mind when you think of potential ways to use the funds. And so some suggestions for council's consideration that I came up with. So you could use a portion of the funds to cover the $92,000 gap in grant funding that we no longer had to help us with COVID mitigation and response. We could use it to replace lost revenues. We could think through capital projects or engineering services that come with water, sewer, and broadband. And another use for your consideration is trying to address the negative economic impacts by partnering with the Soldovia Chamber of Commerce to provide funding for advertising Soldovia to assist in community promotion and economic recovery. Because council allocated coronavirus relief funds for business relief and utility relief for residents. And there could be a way of promoting our community to help generate more business activity. So those are suggestions that still need to be vetted through the guidelines for the American Rescue Plan funds. The guidelines just came out today. And so there's a lot of energy of people trying to decipher what U.S. Treasury has written in a very long document. And so I just wanted to bring this topic before council so that you had a better idea of the funding we're going to receive through the American Rescue Plan, and then start thinking about how the funds should be applied to help the city of Soldovia. So next steps, we'll go through the administrative process to receive the first installment of funds, and then council will accept those funds through legislation, and that legislation will state what the funds will be used for. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Rachel, for that presentation. Any questions, comments from council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Pearlie.
Yeah, I thought when we got our first funding, there was, it couldn't be used for lost revenue. And I see this one, we're able to. Is that new policy or new guidelines or?
Yeah, through the mayor, yes. That's why the Alaska Municipal League is encouraging governments to think about it for lost revenue, because the first type of funding we received, you could not use it for that. And so a lot of feedback that governments had to, local governments had to US Treasury is, you know, it's great that we're providing assistance, but we ourselves are hurting through our operations, through like layoffs, having to reduce services because they didn't have the revenue coming in. And so I believe this was a next step or a compromise that the federal government made so that local governments could start doing that.
Very good. And with the lost revenue that we've had from the ferry, I guess we can't consider that COVID because the ferry was going to shut down anyway for maintenance. Are we able to work that into lost revenues or?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Morrison, we'd have to look into that because US Treasury has specific guidelines of how you evaluate lost revenue. So we'd have to weed through the guidelines and see what they say could qualify or how you evaluate what lost revenue is. And that could be because we had reduced ferry service. It could be a justifiable expense because our revenue for the municipal dock went down compared to prior years.
Thank you. And what about our water and sewer? Can we use some of them fundings for that?
Definitely. It's very clear that one of the primary uses is water and sewer infrastructure improvements, because I think the Biden administration wants to generate economic activity to kind of stabilize and rehabilitate communities. So creating work, economy through water and sewer improvements.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead, George.
Yeah, that smells very much like a sewage pump. Real clean. We don't have to go through a lot of hoops to explain anything about it. We bought the thing, it cost X. Pay for it with that.
Any
Mr.
other
Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, no, great. Yeah, congratulations on this great PowerPoint. It's very exciting to see that we may have some monies to help us out with our budget with the American Rescue Plan. I'm excited to see this and that the parameters have been expanded. It's a good thing to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Any other final questions, comments? Okay, anyone from the public? And can you, Rachel, can you take your screen off of sharing? There we go. Thank you. Heidi, anyone from, excuse me, anyone from the public?
I'm not seeing anybody at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I don't think we need any action from the council, as that was at this point, it's basically informational only. Looks like we'll have some action in the future when we do actually receive funds to discuss how we're going to spend those and then to allocate those through legislation. So thank you, Rachel, for that presentation. Item M2 is a draft letter to the Alaska State Legislature and Governor Dunleavy regarding the forward funding of the Alaska Marine Highway System. And this is found on page 204 of your packet. And I'll go ahead and let staff go ahead and present.
Thank you, Mayor. So at the last council meeting, we shared that there was an effort from the legislature and governor, a bipartisan effort to forward fund the Alaska Marine Highway with some of the federal funds that they're receiving, that $1.02 billion state of Alaska is receiving through the American Relief Plan or Rescue Plan funds. And so it's always nice to say thank you or encourage action to the legislature rather than continually focus on what we don't like. And so in order to encourage or offer our encouragement and support to the state, this is a draft letter for council's consideration saying thank you. We support the forward funding of the Alaska Marine Highway System. It was a recommendation in the work group report to the governor in order to make that happen or stabilize our ferry system. And then it also just reminds them as well that not only did the report say that you should forward fund the ferry system, but you should also have a realistic 3 to 5 year rolling general fund budget plan for the ferry that the agency can use to create vessel operating plans and schedules 12 to 18 months forward. And then the letter ends on a note that it would be prudent for the legislature and governor to take up the consideration of the funds that are needed to finish the construction of the Tustamina replacement vessel. And then the reason why it just has the mayor on it, it was just order of simplicity and having one signature, but we can totally amend the letter to have everyone's signature line if you would want, but it just helps in streamlining the process so we can get it to the governor and legislature quickly. That's all I have.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate you guys getting that drafted up. Any questions, comments from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep. Go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I'm in total favor of sending this off. Thank you. And I'm okay with just the mayor having his signature, just so we can get it off to the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll go ahead and see if anyone from the public has any questions, comments. Heidi?
I'm not seeing any at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back to council for final discussion or final action. And I'll just give a quick comment. Yeah, I thank you again for the staff for drafting this. I think it's very appropriate given the many discussions we've had here over the last year and the challenges that we're facing with the Alaska Marine Highway System. I know there seems to be a battle down in Juneau, between what the governor wants and what, a majority of the legislature seem to want. So this appears to be one step in the in the right direction in terms of implementing one of the suggestions of the reshaping group. So appreciate that, and I'm definitely in support of it. So we'll look for a motion from council to give some guidance to the city manager to go ahead and send this on to the governor's office.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that the letter that's been drafted to the Alaska State Legislature and to our governor moves forward from the city office with our support.
Thank you, Vivian. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Rojas to accept the drafted letter and have the staff send this on down to Juneau. Second by Nathan. All those in favor? Nathan?
Aye.
Sweat?
Aye.
Colberg?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Rojas?
Aye.
Peyton?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes and the city manager has direction to go ahead and get that letter signed and sent on down to Juneau. Let's go ahead and take a short recess, 5-minute recess for everyone to take care of business here, smoke break, whatever you need. And then we'll get back. We'll finish with item M3 that was added to the agenda tonight. And then we'll get in and finish up with the city manager's report. And then we can get finished up. So let's take a quick 5 and then we will be back. Thank you. Ready whenever you are, Heidi.
Ready? Oh, sorry. Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I got you now.
Okay, we are here and ready when you are, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and come out of recess and back to order. And we're going to go ahead and continue on with item M3. This was amendment to the agenda requesting to appropriate additional funding for the harbor kiosk budget overruns. And if we could go ahead and have staff go ahead and give us the rundown on this.
Thank you, Mayor. So in, I believe, 2020, council authorized a $25,000 withdrawal from the Soldovia Permanent Fund for the harbor kiosk project, capital project. And as of May 10th, we've spent $24,542. And we have not had the electrical work installed yet. So our quote from the city electrician to do that work, which includes also extending power to the Scenic Byway Gateway Pavilion, is $3,200. And then there's also staff time that hasn't been put towards the kiosks yet for digging the trench. The overnight stay for Glenn and our city electrician and bringing him here. And then who knows, there could be other unanticipated expenses. So because we're basically at the $25,000 threshold, I would recommend that council appropriate from the Soldovia Permanent Fund another $5,000, bringing the total project cost to $30,000. And then if there was any unspent funds, they could be put back into the Soldovia Permanent Fund. But that way, staff have $5,000 worth more of permission from council to complete the project.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Any questions, comments from council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, George.
just a couple quick questions. What exactly is left to be done? I see meters hanging on both those things, so I'm assuming that all the wiring is done inside. Is that correct?
Through the mayor, and I may ask the city clerk to help me with this, but I don't believe the electrician has connected. So basically, staff are using a extension cord to power up everything. So I think the power is still located at that HEA post in front of the kiosks. And I don't know if they've done the wiring work inside, but if the city clerk could comment on that.
Yes, through the mayor, I could answer that. The wiring is done inside of the buildings. It's
Oh.
just the connection from the meter
From
to the buildings, and then there's an additional connection that will be made to the pavilion. The wiring hasn't been done on the pavilion at all, so that will also need to take place.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, if you could fill me in where, I guess I'm a little bit disappointed that we've already met our threshold. Are we charging this account for the public works hours on working on the buildings? Is that coming out of here? I guess I want to know how it is that we have already gotten to our 25,000. I thought we had a pretty good budget that we were going to be able to do all of this for 25.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Rojas, for the sheds themselves, they cost a little under $12,000. For the freight, it was a little under $3,500. The finishing materials were a little under $3,500. The labor, which is the public works time, is $4,314 so far. Travel costs, I'm assuming for the electrician, is $210, and then the electrical work thus far has cost $1,100. So it's brought us to $24,542.
And how much is it that we have set aside to hook up the pavilion to? What's the cost factor there, just the pavilion? Do we know?
Through the mayor, I could not get that response from staff from our electrician, but we have the materials for it. So there are about $2,000 worth of materials to do the whole work. So I'm assuming the labor involved and the travel involved in coming to Soldovia to do the work is $1,200. And it does add an expense to connect the pavilion to power, because we have to dig the trench and then lay more electrical line to it.
Okay, so we're talking 1,200 pavilion plus more for labor.
Yeah, so I've been told that the cost for the materials for the kiosks, there's $2,000 worth of materials that have already been purchased by the electrician. And then the whole project, he gave a quote of $3,200, so $1,200 for labor, installation, travel to Soldovia, I'm assuming, to get us to that $3,200.
Okay, and one more question, Mr. Mayor, if I may, for clarification. Yeah, for clarification. So we have billed the kiosk $4,000 for our two public works folks to be working on the kiosks. Is that correct? 4,000?
Correct. And it's definitely something that'll be in my mind if there's ever a big project that's brought up for staff to complete, because this project has taken overtime in order to do, because they have to do their normal duties and then some for the kiosks, and it's taken city staff away from doing other projects and maintenance work in order to complete the kiosks. So I don't know if all the work could have been done for that amount, the $4,300 amount so far, to complete them, but that's how much we've spent in labor. And it, I believe, was a condition probably from the previous administrator to include the public works staff time to that. To give you guys the most complete picture of how much this capital project would cost.
Thank you for that. I will say I'm disappointed that when we're talking about the budget we're talking about and the condition the city is in right now, it's hard for me to say, let's put more money in places that we thought we had budgeted and we were okay with. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead, Pearlie.
Yeah, so you're saying 3,200 for materials and the electrician. Have we paid HEA yet, the 500 to hook the building up?
Through the mayor, I don't know. Our harbor master has been our project manager, and so I was given the quote for 3,200 for the city electrician, and then the additional 1,800 would be a buffer that could include, if that hasn't already been included in the project cost thus far, it could be part of that 1,800.
And when we figure in, we're going to dig the trench, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
So that's at $250 an hour for our backhoe plus operator, if I've seen our budget fee schedule correctly. I don't see how 5,000 is going to cover it, and I too, like Vivian, am a little disappointed at the money we're putting into them kiosks. I'd be a little more at ease if we had some takers and some people chomping at the bit to get in there, but that doesn't seem to be the case. But I guess we're this deep into the project. I guess we got to see it finished through, but it's kind of looking like a money pit, but I could be wrong. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments from council?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, another $5,000 in the pavilion will have power. Both kiosks will have power, and hopefully that'll be the end of it'll be up and running, and we won't have to add more to it to do something else. Get two birds with one stone, but it's still a bit much. But like Pearlie said, it's we may as well finish it and be done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, one more comment.
Yep, go ahead, Pearlie.
I didn't hear you add in the extra pay that we paid an additional grader operator while Jordan was working on the kiosks. We hired another hand to, is that figured into the cost of the kiosks or?
Through the mayor, no, that cost is not factored in.
I think it should be.
Okay, any other questions, comments on the additional monies requested to finish the electrical power for the kiosks?
And Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, George.
just one more thing right quick. Let's all of us try to remember that when we decided to do this, it was a whole different world. The city was in a lot better shape. We looked at this a lot differently. And, you know, another 5,000 in the great scheme of things is probably not going to break us. And as John says, that'll get us over the top, and then hopefully we'll be in pretty good shape from there. Heidi, you told me you had someone interested in one of the buildings. Did anything come of that?
We had somebody pick up an application today, but they have not returned it yet.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, George. Yeah, I'll just offer a couple comments too. Yeah, I would agree with what George said. I mean, things have taken a drastic turn here in the last, it's been a long project. Things have taken a, you know, obviously a whole different turn on, you know, business and the way, you know, people are spending money, the economy, the whole deal. So, I mean, things right now obviously are looking way better than they were last year. Phones are ringing, businesses bookings are up for everybody. So I think it's going to be a good summer. Hopefully we'll still get some interest. I think it's definitely in our best interest to, you know, move forward. You know, I mean, it's a little hard to swallow, but yeah, we're in this deep. I mean, again, $5,000 is probably, it's not the end of the world. But we need to see it through. You know, as something that we started. And obviously, you know, it's unfortunate when there's cost overruns. But that just happens sometimes. I can't remember the exact amount of labor that we had, you know, thrown at our original budget. But obviously we've had you know, a couple of overruns here and there that we're gonna, you know, have to hopefully make up at some point over the long run. So I definitely am in favor of appropriating the money and getting this project completed. We'll have power at both the pavilion and both of the kiosk buildings. So that's all I had. We'll go ahead and move on to public. If there's any comments or questions from the public.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have a Miss Laurel Hiltz.
Okay, Laurel.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I know it's all good intentions, and so our hope is that good things will come out of the kiosks, and it was all in line with the concept of economic development. And as the council moves forward, something to consider when you look at dollars and how they're spent. There's a huge need in this community for rental properties. And so maybe there's ways to invest in small businesses and homeowners in how they might go about converting their properties to have units that are available for rent, and use dollars in that way, because that would certainly be beneficial to the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel. Any other members of the public wishing to speak?
I'm not seeing any at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for final action for appropriating additional funding for the Harbor kiosk budget overruns to cover the remaining power costs. And I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion. We appropriate $5,000 to finish the kiosks. That's it.
Okay, we have a motion to appropriate an additional $5,000 by Colberg to finish the kiosk project. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Morrison. Did someone
Mr.
else?
Mayor,
Yep.
if I may,
Yep.
if
Go
I
ahead.
ask- does that include the pavilion?
Yes.
As a-
what I understand, the pavilion is included in those costs, correct? Rachel?
Okay.
Correct.
Yep, okay.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, Nathan,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Colberg,
Aye.
Morrison,
Aye.
Rojas,
Reluctantly, aye.
Peyton,
Unreluctantly, aye.
motion passes unanimously 6-0. Okay, thank you everyone for that. That'll take us down to item N, City Manager's Report. And this will be in the laydown on page, I think it's on 16. Where are we at there? Yep, 15 or 16. A couple letters in there. And Rachel, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm sorry, Council, that this was in the laydown. It's a goal to get these included in the regular packets so you have time to read them. But sometimes stuff happens, so I'll try to be quick in going over the manager's report with you tonight. So the first part of the manager's report goes over the fact that the governor ended the COVID-19 emergency declaration. However, at the same time, the governor put into effect a public health emergency instead. And so while we're not under an emergency declaration, there is still a public health emergency with COVID-19. At the same time, the legislature passed House Bill 76. And so it just goes, the manager's report in this section just goes over the fact that while there isn't a disaster declaration in place, the reason for it being that we've moved forward in how we're addressing the pandemic, so it's no longer considered a disaster. We're getting ahead of the curve, hopefully. But there's still an emergency in place. And House Bill 76 allowed the state to retroactively have an emergency declaration so that we didn't have to pay back the Treasury $100 million because of the time that the governor ended it and the legislature couldn't get back together in order to pass the emergency declaration. So in short, an emergency still exists, but it's not at the disaster level. I spoke with the Kenai Peninsula Borough Emergency Manager, Dan Nelson, and he said that the Kenai Peninsula Borough, as of when the manager's report was written, is going to keep its disaster declaration in place until June 30th. And then at that date, they intend to rescind it so that they will no longer have an emergency declaration put into place. And soon, hopefully in your next packet, SVT's Laurel Hiltz will be providing council with a memo that shares the data associated with the vaccination efforts in Soldovia. And so that'll give Soldovia City Council some statistics when reviewing the level of vaccination and safety of our community in terms of COVID-19. And so as a reminder, if council did not want to extend the emergency declaration past the city's June 30th date, or you voted to repeal it sooner, per Alaska state statute, we would be required to issue a proclamation stating the declaration was terminated, and we would need to file that termination with the state. And during the termination of the emergency declaration, council could state that the emergency operations and response plan is still active. So it's kind of like what the state has done, where the state has rescinded the disaster declaration, but still has the public health emergency order in effect. Council could end our disaster declaration, but still have a emergency operations center, COVID mitigation plan, public facilities, operations in light of COVID policies in place. So you don't have to get rid of everything just because you end the disaster. So that's the first part of the manager's report. Moving on to ATVs in second class boroughs, it was a question raised about how ATVs driving on roads within a second class borough like the Kenai Peninsula would go. City Clerk Gagel helped get the answer for council that the borough does not have enforcement authority as it pertains to ATVs and snowmobiles on roads. If that enforcement were to occur, that would have to come from the state. And they don't have law enforcement powers as a second class borough. On Wednesday, I can't believe it's this week, we're going to have our city cleanup day from 1 to 4 p.m. There will not be an e-waste barge this year, but it sounds like that'll be in the works for next year. And so if council members and the public have time to come out and help pick up trash and make our community more beautiful for our summer season. We're going to be doing that from 1 to 4 p.m. meeting at the Harbor Master's office. Last week on Thursday, I presented the FY22 budget bird's eye view to the Soldovia Chamber of Commerce. And I included that PowerPoint presentation in the packet if council would like to see the material I shared with them. I went over items like how the assessment roll for Soldovia has decreased by basically $1.4 million, which means we lose over $10,500 in property taxes for FY22, and just discussed a trend and how the city, at least for the general fund, has been exceeding forecasted expenses in the budget process. And so we received a public comment that's in the laydown packet from constituent Chris Lafine regarding the city's budget practice. And that is on page 15 of your packet to read his public comment. On Monday, May 17th, I'm going to be in Homer meeting with the city managers across the Kenai Peninsula. We're going to be discussing the American Rescue Plan, COVID and the new normal for city operation, budgets, and economic recovery. The farmers market proposal for the pavilion, they're not going to be requesting the use of the pavilion this year, but hope to do so in the future. And during that council meeting, there was a council member who asked something along the lines of, what is that line between providing the space at no cost to this group, but charging another? And so I spoke with our insurance company about that. And they said for situations like that, council should develop a policy that basically allows the council to make a decision in the name of economic development, whether to waive fees or not to community groups that aren't formally established or are trying to do something, get off the ground in Soldovia. In terms of insurance, they always recommend that the city requires $1 million liability risk insurance in case an injury or something were to occur on city property. That way the fault isn't coming on us, but council could always waive that requirement if you wanted to. So if there's a council member that would be interested in championing this project and coming up with a policy where we could waive fees for entities that make a request for economic development, please let me know. There's been a question about the metal roof at the city office. The metal roof at the city office building is basically corroding and poses a safety hazard, where we wouldn't want someone to walk underneath that during a windstorm and have the metal, I don't know if it's called a shingle, but panel to fall down and hit somebody. So that's why that entrance to the city office is closed off. And our operator, Jordan Cameron, is getting quotes to see how much that would cost to replace. At your next council meeting, you're going to be reviewing the public safety contract from the state. The Department of Public Safety is giving us the same amount as last year for providing public safety services outside of city limits. And so council can accept the terms of that agreement through a resolution at your next meeting. And that's for $20,000. And at the work session that we had, I didn't get to cover all of the materials just because there was so much to talk about, but I provided some data for your consideration regarding snow removal, road maintenance, and our best practices score from the state of Alaska, and what that means to help get loans for the city to cover water and sewer. So that's just presented in the manager's report for your review and consideration. At the last council meeting, I believe there was a question regarding water tokens, and our finance officer shared that one token, which is $1.50, yields 20 gallons of water, which is 7.5 cents a gallon. So people who use water tokens are paying a higher amount than people who receive water at their home. And then a couple additional items. There is, through the Small Business Administration of the federal government, a restaurant revitalization fund where restaurants, bars, food trucks, bakeries, and many more businesses who lost revenue as a result of COVID-19 can apply. So your fellow restaurant businesses in Soldovia, please encourage them and let them know that the Alaska Small Business Development Center could help them apply for this funding. And then the Alaska State Council on the Arts is hosting an adaptation and innovation grant program. So this could be something that if the Soldovia Arts Council wanted to pursue, it could be a good idea. It's intended to support arts activities in Alaska during a time of great change, response to community need, and creativity. So they're viewing schools, organizations, and individuals and their efforts to get creative in their community as ways that we can come together. So there's grants for that. And then, of course, a lot of enclosures in the manager's report. You can read up more about the governor and the disaster declaration and emergency order, as well as House Bill 76. You can see the presentation to the Chamber of Commerce. You can review the best practices score regarding our water and sewer infrastructure that the state issued us. And then there's informational items, including a summary of COVID-19 vaccine breakthrough cases in Alaska, vaccines being available for youth ages 12 to 15, and an announcement from the governor that he has created a task force on broadband. And I shared that press release with SVT's president, Crystal Collier, because the city and SVT have been working through at least GCI to improve our broadband service. And I noticed that the task force that the governor wants to create is going to have 11 voting members and 2 ex officio members. And it could be someone from an organization that represents regional rural interests in the state. And so if there was a council member or mayor or member of the public interested in contacting the state to participate on this task force regarding broadband, please let me know. And with that, that's all I have. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions, comments for the city manager?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, George.
can the city do basically what the state has done with regard to the COVID emergency? Can we say, for example, we don't mandate masks or social distancing, but we reserve the right to bring that back should it become necessary? Is that basically the stance that we can take? Isn't that what the state is doing?
Through the mayor, so I do not believe the state mandated mask wearing. Recently, they're now shifted to, I believe, health advisories, and the city could do the same thing where we just highly recommend that people observe COVID safe practices, especially with the variants and seeing how the summer will go. And we could end our disaster declaration and do something similar where we make a public statement that says there's still an emergency in effect, and then we continue certain operations to promote the safety of the whole community.
And that we could reinstate more drastic measures at our whim, basically. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you, George. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, on the ATV issue, so do we know where we stand since how this all began? Because we had a police officer who could not legally stop anybody because of where they were with ATVs and that sort of thing. So in reading this, does our police chief now have the right or the okay to ticket or stop somebody, or that the four-wheelers and snow machines can be on the state road? I'm confused by what we got from the second-class bureau. So where does this stand?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Rojas, it was just a separate question that a council member had asked about. So we were just answering that question. We submitted comment, and you can see the letter that was submitted to the state in the last council packet, saying that we advocate for the amendment that they're making regarding ATVs driving on state highways. And so we haven't heard anything back yet. The public comment period did close. And so I expect within the next month or so that there would be a finding issued on amending that statute or not.
Okay, thank you. That just clarified it for me. And on another note, has the staff been able to put anything out about or what the policy is going to be with the king salmon snagging, posting and information to the public? Because I think we kind of put that onto you folks at the city office. Is that correct? What's the update there?
Yes, through the mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Rojas, for bringing that up. So I've been in conversation with Fish and Game's Mike Booz about that. I got recommended sign language from him. I have not had a chance yet to look at how much it would cost to make signs for that. But we could always just start with a simple flyer. I've also been in touch with DOT's public information officer to see who exactly gets the request to evaluate the traffic safety issues concerning snagging off the bridge. So there's been forward motion on that, but I don't have anything more to report.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the concise report. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Vivian. Any other
Mayor?
questions, comments? Yep, go ahead.
One more question about the water tokens. I don't have a lot of sympathy for the folks that are complaining about that. These are people that are outside our water system, and they're not paying anything for the support of the water system. So it's kind of nice that they're willing to help support the system by paying a little bit more, so that those of us who do pay taxes to run the thing get a little break. You what?
I think I asked the question about how that fee worked itself out. I don't think there was a complaint. I think I was just asking how that charge works itself out. Yeah, I don't think anybody complained about the token price.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said that somebody was complaining they were paying 7.5 cents a gallon for water or something, and that was more than what someone was paying at their home. They should be.
No, I was just looking for a clarification on how we charge that rate at the last budgetary meeting.
Okay.
She's just giving me an answer.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead, Pearlie.
Yeah, I'm still a little confused on the ATV. I spoke with Chief Klain and kind of felt like I was putting him on the spot there. What exactly is our ordinance here, or our rules for age limits, whether they got to wear helmets?
I can take a
Example,
stab at
my
that.
13-year-old granddaughter wants to ride the wheeler on the road. Is it legal?
Yeah, Heidi, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is an ordinance. It's been a longstanding ordinance. I think since the 80s. I can find it here real quick. But the requirement is, or the ordinance speaks to the fact that ATVs and snowmobiles can operate on city streets. So you have to remember that Anderson Street, Main Street, Dock Street, and Airport Avenue are all state highways. So that's what this regulation is talking about with the state, is can they operate on state highways? On the city streets, these side streets here, ATVs and snowmobiles are allowed to operate. However, you have to be 14 or older. You have to have a permit, and you have to wear a helmet, along with other requirements like proper lighting, headlights, tail lights, and I can gladly print out that ordinance and provide it to you, or it is in your ordinance book, but there are requirements to be able to operate on a city street. Yes.
Thank you. That answered my question.
Yeah, just to clarify, I don't think there's any question about the chief's ability to enforce that. I mean, everyone knows, and it happens in every small community in the state that's got, some sort of state highway attached to it. People are riding wheelers and, on those roads. And I think that's, part of what has stemmed that request to the state, so that we, officially are not breaking laws. It's just kind of one of the unwritten rules that obviously if we're driving them on Main Street, hopefully you're following the rest of the same laws that we already have on the books for our local streets. So, yeah, and if there's people not following those regulations, I think the chief's within his right, whether it's on a state, whether it's on a state road or a city road, to pull them over and question or ticket or impound. So at least in my opinion, that's the way I see it. So,
Mr. Mayor, if I get a one quick follow-up.
yep, you bet.
Now, not to nitpick, but if I took the wheeler to the beach, she would be able to drive it on the beach off-road?
I think when you get into the burn, that comes into what we were talking about earlier. I think when we get into the borough deal, yeah, I think she can do whatever once you're not on a city street or on a state highway. I think once you're off road, I think it's fair game. I don't think there's anything from the state of Alaska prohibiting minors from riding off road.
Thank you. Yeah, it answers my questions. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions, comments for the city manager? Yep. Go ahead, Harmony.
Can I ask some questions from Tim Lathine's letter? I don't know if so I'm wondering about question number 3, like the online tax that the borough implements. I thought that when we discussed that they were going to be implementing that tax, that we would be getting, so that we do get that.
Through the mayor, yes, and I responded to Mr. Lathine about that the city, through the Alaska Municipal League, participates in the Remote Seller Sales Tax Commission. And on behalf of the city, they collect the sales tax from Amazon sales within the city of Soldovia, and then that gets remitted to us quarterly.
Okay, I didn't see where you had responded to him. I think the rest of it is kind of, I've had my answers or got the rest of my answers. Other than that, I liked your report. Thank you. One more thing, per your report. So I want to circle back to something that Laurel said at the beginning of the meeting about, she mentioned the grandstand, and traditionally that was put in front of the docks there. The city's stance currently is that we will not be hosting big public congregative events during the 2020 or the COVID. Okay.
No. Through the mayor, that's not the city's stance. Large gatherings are permitted. There's just a special events COVID mitigation policy in place where people have to take into account how they're going to address COVID-19 with that large event. And then there's, you provide what you're going to do to ensure things like ensuring people can stay 6 feet apart or remain within their bubbles. And so large events are totally permitted. And we posted at least a Facebook meme. I don't know if it ever became a flyer, just encouraging the public by saying, yes, the city is pro safe event. Yes, you can make things happen. The city would be more than happy to help you put something together. So yes, large events are permitted.
Okay. And then I guess that'll be it for now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Harmony. I just had one question. Is the hazmat barge, is that due to budget constraints, or what caused that not to be able to come this year? Do we know?
Through the mayor, we have Laurel Hiltz who can speak to that.
Yeah,
I don't think he can see what's going on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This is different because it doesn't have the same process. So the hazmat barge will happen, Mr. Mayor. And I believe that one takes place in the fall, but the e-waste barge like your old TVs, old computers, that type of thing. They just found that they didn't have enough. So the good news is that people are really getting into this habit of collecting their items, turning them in Seldovia, Port Graham, and Nunwalik, and so that when the barge comes, there's materials to collect. And so what we determined was, one, they had said, Port Graham, Nunwalik, they don't have enough. We're not going to go there. Seldovia, what do you guys have? And it was like a pallet or two that's collected because people are properly disposing of these. And so they determined that the cost of a barge to come get a pallet of e-waste was not a good use of fiscal, or anything. So Seldovia Village Tribe has a connex at mile 4 that e-waste can be stored. If for some reason the city didn't have available storage, there is storage available. But our hope is that community members, if they're wanting to muck out their stuff, that, they could still make it available to us to store for them. And then the next year, the e-waste barge would come.
Laura,
Yeah.
you guys are still collecting it down by
Yeah,
Tribal Cache building?
so at our Alaska Tribal Cache building, adjacent to the State Ferry lot that the city has, we have white fish totes, and e-waste can be put there. The best bet is to communicate directly to Michael Opheim or to Stephen Payton. And while I have the moment, Mr. Mayor, with your permission, I just wanted to state that per Michael Opheim, who's the environmental director for Seldovia Village Tribe, he and Stephen Payton are part of the ADF&G local action group. And he had indicated that at times you can apply for a special ruling, an emergency ruling in regards to something like you're dealing with the snagging issue for the Seldovia Slough. So if you wanted to reach out to Michael Opheim, I think he could give you a little more input. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, is it okay if I?
Yep, go ahead.
We did just discuss that. It doesn't apply. Stephen already looked into that. It doesn't remediate our issues with the snagging. And then can you go ahead and speak to us about the hazmat? We've already clarified our e-waste. Can you clarify the hazmat barge for us?
So I think hazmat is things like paint cans, oil, things that we don't take to the borough landfill, batteries, those types of things. And the way I remember that happening, and that's done through an agency, but not like the community announces it, but I think the agency just comes in and does it. And if I recall, they come into the boat ramp at the end of the harbor there, and they'll have the big barrels out and people bring their stuff and dump, and then it goes out on a barge.
So is that through the state, the city, or the tribe?
Well, it's an agency. It's probably federal, I would think, but I don't know what the acronym is, but you might know somebody who would know in your house. Okay.
Hopkins probably knows. I'm sure Hopkins knows. Heidi?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's what I was just going to say. Last time, I know that advertising happened through the landfill and through Hopkins. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you, Laurel, for clarifying that. Yeah, I was confused on that. So appreciate the clarification.
Mr.
Okay.
Mayor,
Any final comments, questions for the city manager?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Go ahead, Pearlie.
I know the bridge and snagging is a touchy subject, but did I interpret you to hear you say that you were going to get signs and post them?
Yes, through the mayor, at the last council meeting, council made a motion to have, let me see if I can remember the motion correctly. I think it was like informational material pamphlets to put up discouraging snagging and in the harbor. So the signs would be posted up at the harbor saying, please do not snag here. Something to that effect.
So you're not going to post them on the bridge?
Right, not on the bridge. The
Okay,
bridge is
thank
the
you.
state.
One deal on the snagging in the harbor. You can't prevent people from snagging in the harbor, but you can sure tell them you cannot snag off of our dock. It's you should be able to. It's not state property, it's city property, or public city Seldovia property.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Colberg, I completely agree. However, the state specifically says, and there's a legal opinion on it, that cities cannot regulate state resources, including fishing. So there's been attempts by municipalities to do that, and that was my point too. This is city property. We should be able to manage city property according to what local government says. But this is one arena where the state supersedes city regulation.
Okay, I would just state that we're not stopping them from fishing in the harbor. They can fish off the beach all the way around the harbor.
Mhm.
It's just that simple to me. I would even take it to court. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. All right, any final comments? And we can close this meeting out for tonight.
Mayor, if I may, I forgot one thing.
Yep.
That the police chief brought to my attention. So right now we're seeking public comment on the naming of the Seldovia Police Department after Chief Anderson. And I know that there was discussion from council on being involved in the sign that gets mounted on the outside of the building, but in the interest of time, Chief Hawkins has found a low-cost sign solution, and we do have budget within the police department in the FY21 amended budget under equipment purchases. There is enough budget to cover the cost of the sign that he has found. And so I would just ask for council's input on, do you want to be involved in the sign design for the outside of the building, or in the interest of time, because we're trying to make this happen by June for when Donica visits, could we move ahead with this design, or does council want to delay and talk about it further?
Yep. Thank you for bringing that up. Any questions or comments from council on if, how in depth council wants to go in terms of involvement on the exterior sign?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I put full faith in the staff down the city office, and with our police chief, they can come up with something that will be put on the outside of our building. So I have no problem with that moving forward. For sake of time, move forward with it. I'm sure it'll be just perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vivian. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Pearlie.
Yeah, I'm total agreement with Vivian. I think the staff does a great job, and with Chief Klain and involved in it, let's get it going so we can have a good visit with Donica and family. So thanks.
Thank you, Pearlie. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I agree with Vivian and Pearlie. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments on the exterior sign?
If nobody else does, Mr. Mayor, I would like to comment that we do have the interior sign that Chris Crosta mocked up for the city, and he brought it to the city office today. I can pass it around, or people can look at it at the end of the meeting. But I did want to make sure to point out that he did provide that sign. So
Awesome.
if anybody wants to look at it, it's available.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Pearlie.
Yeah, are we still going to go with some kind of a placard under that sign inside the building? I know we talked about it, but I don't know if it ever got anywhere.
Yeah, I think we agreed that we all wanted to do something like that. I think that the staff can come up with that, or Klain can help facilitate that. Getting something that's gonna look good underneath of that, and have his name, and then the years of service. Something that's very, very tasteful under there, like was discussed.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, George.
Seemed like I remember the Anderson family wanted Andy's full name with.
Yeah, I think there was a change. I think there was a change to that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you
I
missed
just
that
wanna make
meeting.
sure that whatever we do, it complies with what the family wants.
Yeah, you're correct. And then there was the meeting you were out. I think, Heidi, if you want to just give a quick clarification on that.
Yes, Donica, Mr. Anderson's daughter, did provide an email speaking to the fact that they wanted to honor, or they thought it would be more appropriate to honor Chief Anderson by naming the police department after him, not the whole building, and that they wanted it to be named the Chief Andy's or the Seldovia, whatever it says here, Chief Andy Anderson Seldovia Police Department. Those were her words.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, last opportunity for final comments to the city manager on the report this evening. Okay, I think we are done with that. Item O, informational items not requiring action, none. Item P, executive session, none tonight. Council, item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. Nathan.
Last year, we had a couple of things happen that I'd like to not see happen again. Some folks landed an airplane, parked it on the slough side of the runway, and fished from the slough down there, then loaded whatever they caught, which no one has any idea, directly into their airplane and left. Other times, folks were parking next to the end of the runway, Corky's old hangar, down at the end of the ramp, and then walking across the runway. There were a bunch of kids playing on the runway, running around back and forth, four-wheelers going back and forth. We really need to not have that happen anymore. And I don't know just how we're going to address that, but some signs would probably be a good place to start. But that's it's pretty dangerous, one, and two, I think we should have a little better control over who's taking how many fish out of that slough.
Thank you, George. Sweat.
Yeah, thanks to the staff for all their hard work.
Thank you. Kohlberg.
I agree with Bobby. Staff, you guys are doing a fabulous job. Thank you. Thank the public showed up.
Okay, thank you, John. Pearlie.
Yeah, thanks. Great meeting. Again, compliment to the staff. Laurel, it's always great to have you here. It's interesting as well as educational. And great presentation by Jan Weiland on the library. It's glad to see that starting to reopen again, and place is important. Thanks.
Thank you, Pearlie. Vivian.
Yeah, thank you, staff, for all your great work. And also, I look forward to working with council to develop a sustainable budget and create new revenue that helps relieve the pressure on residents of Seldovia. And I think researching options about the tax exemptions is something, of properties is something that we can talk about. Anyhow, great job tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Vivian. Harmony.
Yep, thank you, staff and volunteers for being here. Members of the public who came, Greg, Laurel, Jan, and Dean, and everybody who's participating online whose name I can't see. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Harmony. I'll just echo the same. Thanks to the staff and everyone. Thank you for working through this last months of the budget process. It's obviously done a lot to further the opening of our eyes on how the information is presented, and I was talking with Rachel about that. It's all in how the presentation is made, on how the budget is presented, and then the ability for council and myself to be able to go in and look at those numbers and fully understand them and what they mean. So I think we've had a pretty good eye opener this year on what's happening with our local budget. So all right, thanks everyone. Thanks to the public for attending tonight and commenting. Appreciate it. Let's see, next meeting will be a regular meeting will be held on May 24th at 6 p.m. and I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any objection? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it
Right.
and have a good evening.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night.